Okay, it's time for another dodgy Geos video. This time I'm having a look into the Shark Navigator Liftaway Bagless vacuum cleaner. And what I've done is I've more or less pulled the dirt collector and the filters out of the machine so that you can actually see what the business of the machine is made of. It basically consists of this motor unit, which is removable, which you would have all seen if you've watched the TV ad, so I won't go over that, which you install a series of filter media into. This here is the secondary filter, and it goes in the base plate of the machine here at the bottom. So we just slide that in like that. And then there is this traditional sort of foam filter that most bagless vacuum cleaners use in some fashion or other, and that sort of sits on the top. Now this unit's sort of owned by a friend, and the machine is about 6 weeks old, and so the filter's been used, but I have actually washed and dried it after blowing it out with compressed air, of course, to make sure that I don't block it up with insolubles. And it is dry. It seems to be okay. The machine has an electrically driven power head on it, which is quite cool, and it promises to be a cyclonic vacuum cleaner. In this regard, I am a little bit skeptical. The reason why I'm a little bit skeptical, which if I can do this while holding the iPhone, is because if you have a look inside the dirt cup here, you'll see that there's a mesh structure inside the cone in the middle, and air actually is pulled through the bagless chamber through the bottom here, and so those fins, if you want to call it, that grate that occupies the center of the funnel, is actually porous. And so instead of the air having to spin around to escape, a lot of it can actually just go straight through. You can see the point of entry for debris is actually there. It does enter at an angle that's sort of semi-tangential. I wouldn't really describe it as tangential the way the Dyson or the Filter Queen are. It sort of, you know, you can see that it can see the mesh at this angle of the dirt cup in the center there, and so some air will tend to go straight through. For this reason, it actually does seem to make the filter dirty very, very quickly. This carpet is relatively well vacuumed and has been vacuumed with an expensive vacuum cleaner, a Kirby, which is ours, and like any vacuum cleaner, you can always get more dirt with another machine. That's not the point of my sort of demonstration, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But I suppose how quickly you get dirt, how much you get in a given time, and what that dirt is comprised of, really a vacuum cleaner makes. So before we get started actually running the machine, I'll share a couple of my entirely subjective thoughts on the machine, and I make no bones about it. I don't like bagless vacuum cleaners. I think that to a large extent they're a bit of a mistake. But I'll try and be objective, having declared that in advance. So, look, something that does concern me, these clips hold the sort of dirt cup mechanism in place. They are quite flimsy. They may last okay, they don't feel it. And it is somewhat fiddly to dock you can see here there's this small plastic latch type mechanism which butts up here, and you can see there's this opening that connects the machine's main chassis and air ducting to the bagless dirt collector. It's exactly the same setup that Dyson DC04 uses, which we've previously owned. So I'm going to try and lock that into place. So I think I've got that home now, and it isn't hard to do. You just snap these in. Yep, that one's clipped in. Not rocket science. Right, and that's in place. So assembly in and of itself isn't particularly difficult. There's a filter in this door here, which is sort of the post-motor filter. Electrolux owners will recognise this setup. It's quite a conventional, disposable pleated filter. They claim it lasts a lifetime. I genuinely find that very, very circumspect. But there you have it. It slides in easily enough. They say it's a sealed system, but there's quite a bit of play in that filter. Maybe it's just this unit, but it isn't tight in there. I question whether or not it's a genuine HEPA. People banter the notion that machines are or aren't genuine HEPA. It's just probably as HEPA as anything else you can buy at this price point, but there you have it. Okay, so the mechanics of the machine, and then we'll use it. So if I spin the machine around, the idea is this vacuum cleaner, I wouldn't really call it an upright. It's more of a canister cleaner that can be docked in an upright configuration to an electrically driven power head. And don't get me wrong, electrically driven power heads are really good, and I think they clean carpet much better than machines that use air-driven turbine heads, and significantly better than machines that use no head at all. But the switch has 3 positions. If I just turn the first position on, the machine will run motor only. If I turn it to the second position, the machine will run motor only until we lean the machine back, and at that time the power head will start operating. You can actually take the vacuum cleaner off. That's the liftaway part, and that's relatively easy to achieve, although maybe not holding a camera. It sort of involves you pushing this button, and then you can lift the entire vacuum cleaner mechanism off the power head. And if you have a look at the power head here, and I do hope this shows up, you can see here are our electrical contacts for driving the head. All of the hoses are pretty generously sized in terms of diameter, which is a great thing for the power head because it means that it doesn't clog up. But it does mean, however, that, you know, handling the unit is quite a bit more difficult than you might think. And this machine is quite lightweight, so just like the Dyson upright vacuum cleaners, if you take the wand off the machine and start working with it to any great extent, I do find the machine has a tendency to tip over. But anyway, let's just see if we can't, sort of looking through the phone to keep everything in focus, get all this docked back on here, and then we'll even see if we can use this thing. So that kind of goes on there. Click, that's in place. Okay, the hose. Let's just disengage the hose. If we press this button on the back, which you can probably see here, and pull, the hose comes off. But look at the size of that. It's huge. And what that means is, I would think if you were an older person or someone who had arthritis, handling the unit would be quite difficult. Just as a comparison, right, I have a Kirby hose here. The Kirby hose is nothing particularly special. It's an ordinary 32mm fitting, and the 32mm fitting gets swallowed with heaps of room to spare by the Navigator's hose. What that means is any existing tools you've got for your current vacuum cleaner or any aftermarket tools you buy aren't going to work well unless you build some sort of reducer out of a piece of polypipe or something. And everything is a clipped fit, which means if those clips break, it's going to flop around like a custard slice. So anyway, let's hang the cord hook on there, and then let's start the vacuum cleaner going and see how well we do. So no light on this machine, I'm afraid. It's just pretty run-of-the-mill, ordinary vacuum cleaner. Seems silly to some people, I suppose, to have a light on a vacuum cleaner, but it does seem to reveal metal objects in the cleaning path sometimes so that the user can pick them up before they get picked up by the machine. Probably not a biggie, but anyway. Okay, so noise. Here we go. So first position is just to use the machine as a canister cleaner. Second position, the machine's now ready to be used as an upright. Like the Dyson, there's no pedal release, just tilt the machine back and the head starts working. There's a green light that indicates that we're cleaning. It is a tilt machine. It's not quite a Dyson ball, but it does allow you to steer to some extent. those of you that may not know, there is actually a right and a wrong way to use a vacuum cleaner. If you go at 1,000,000 miles and don't do overlapping strokes, or in too much of a rush to get done with it, your dirt recovery is severely retarded. But if you do repeated strokes and invest a bit of time, dirt recovery is much more complete. To stop the turbo head, or power head I should say, just return the machine to the upright docked position, and then we can turn the machine off. Now, you know, if this was the TV ad, this is where we say, amazing, how much dirt have we picked up in such a short period of time? Which is a bit farcical because, as some respondents on Whirlpool have already pointed out, any vacuum cleaner can pick up dirt in a short period of time. Actually, even for the tiny bit of carpet we've done over a very short period of time, there's really not a lot there. I see way more than that in a routine clean. That's quite paltry. And look at our filter though. Right, even though it wasn't perfectly white before, it's noticeably much more dirty. I hope this comes out in the video. And there's that definitive mark in the center where you can see where the air inlet, I should say outlet of the bag mechanism is located. So any fine dust is not really, I don't think the machine's truly a cyclonic machine. It doesn't seem to spin the debris. It just relies on this being a sort of collection bin that will obstruct large particles from hitting the filter, but it doesn't really, that I've observed, seem to be a cyclonic machine insofar as, you know, it uses centrifugal force to throw the debris outwards until it becomes too heavy for the airstream and falls foul of it. Instead, you can see there's a little hot spot, and that's actually the spot where, if we look at the back of the machine, where the air path can see, you know, there's a direct line of sight there. So it's not, to my mind, in the genuine sense of the term, a cyclonic vacuum cleaner. And it's certainly not a multi-cyclonic vacuum cleaner, because there are no finer cyclones or air network in the top. I'm loath to even call it this myself, but I suppose the best you could really describe it as is a uni-cyclonic vacuum cleaner. So that's what it is. The clips and everything are of reasonable quality. I have no real criticism in general of the plastic it's made of, except for maybe the bag catches. But in general, you know, the general fittings are okay and everything. It has some tools which you can put on board. I haven't borrowed those, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a rushed effort. One of them is a very large hard floor or delicate surfaces tool. It's okay, but there's just no way you could carry it around on the machine. It's bigger in some respects than the power head the machine's docked to. Removing the cleaning wand is relatively easy. Down the bottom here on the machine, there is another latch, you know, and you can sort of click it and then pull the wand free. Like I say, the unit isn't, I'll just remove this cord hook here. The unit isn't really an upright. I suppose, to my mind, uprights really don't exist anymore. This hose is okay, but, you know, like I'm working against the machine now, and it's wanting to follow me. And if I go this way, I'm pretty sure it'll want to tip over. And there it did. So, you know, I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm being too harsh on it, but seriously, if you were really cleaning your house, you kind of have to pay attention to what the machine's doing. It's not like you can just clean carefree, because like any of these machines, it lacks the mass to stay in place when the hose is disengaged from the caddy. It's very light. I mean, there's my little finger and I've lifted it up. There has to be something said for that. But that would generally benefit older people, and if you're an older person, I think you'd struggle to operate some of the switches and toggles. And I just can't impress upon respondents enough how large this stretch hose is in terms of diameter. And the fittings in general are quite unwieldy in some respects. I don't doubt it'll last its warranty period for most people. It'll be okay. The power head on it seems really genuinely quite good. and it seems to do agitation of the carpet pretty darn well. I'm not so fond of machines that don't have real height adjustments. One last thing I'd like to show you though is just about stretch hoses. They're good. I have no doubt about that. They have a number of advantages. They make sure that there's no waste in the hose. The further airflow has to travel through a hose, the more losses we get. I put a formula I managed to dig up in a garage or GUV thread that was running recently, and I did actually manage to equate, you know, how much airflow we lose over a given area owing to friction. But while these hoses are brilliant because they keep the cleaning power for the machine as concentrated as possible by not having the hose be longer than it needs to be for a given job, they aren't all that durable. This is a conventional hose. It's a Kirby hose, and I might ask Mrs. Gios or Miss Gios. Miss Gios, would you hold the camera for me? Thank you very much, Miss Gios. And what I'd like to do, can you see this, Miss Gios?
Yes.
You okay? What I'm going to do is sort of show you a pretty unkind thing to do to a hose, right? It's just not really recommended, and yet it pops back into place perfectly, blemish free. There is no way on earth I would even attempt doing it to this hose. It uses some sort of a wire configuration. What that means is the hose, to my mind, isn't really genuinely crush proof. If you run over it with a car or something heavy, it's going to distort, and that's going to cause the hose to potentially become obstructed by items that get jammed in it. In all, it's a reasonable cleaner. I'm not convinced it won't lose suction. That filter gets dirty for my liking way too quickly. Can I just have the camera? Thanks. I'm not at all convinced that this no loss of suction thing holds up for any vacuum cleaner, and certainly not this particular one. I'm even skeptical that you could really call it bagless. That hot spot's a bit of a giveaway. There is a secondary filter underneath. It's sort of a semi-cloth, semi-paper fibrous-y type thing. The machine does have an obstruction release valve, so that if the airflow becomes obstructed, the machine actually will bleed some airflow in through this valve, simply to protect the motor. The motor is not a bypass motor, it is a straight-through motor. Its orientation concerns me because that's the fan in there and the dirt will go straight down. So if anyone were to forget to put this filter in or something, or even if you took it outside to clean it and debris flew in, the motor's going to have a chew. But, if bagless is your personal thing and that's the way you like a machine to be, given that it's a lot cheaper than a Dyson, it does actually work pretty good. And even though I'm not convinced it doesn't lose suction, I must say that, general cleaning performance is pretty honest. It's good that Harvey Norman are going to offer these things and that we don't have to, use the Danos Direct or TV marketing type way of getting hold of one. For me, it's not enough. I'm not convinced. It's just not a performance cleaner. There's no way it would match what I'm currently using. And in fact, while I will concede there is dirt in there, and like I said earlier, we'll always get more dirt no matter what cleaner we use. Really, if the machine had any serious work to do, there would be quite a bit more in there than there is, and there isn't. So, it's not for me. As for whether or not it's for you, only you can really decide. I certainly, the Monsters Inc. appearance doesn't do much for me, but I guess that's looks. Looks are only skin deep. In all, it's probably $400 worth, but I would personally buy a bagged cleaner myself. Miss Gios, would you please go and get a bag for our vacuum cleaner, a disposable bag, and bring it back to us? I just want to give you one other thing to think about. Look, with filters, doesn't matter what vacuum cleaner you've got, with filters, square inches matters, or centimetres squared, whichever metric you want to use. The more area we have on the filter, the more air can pass through the filter in a given time.
Would you like the inside or the outside?
I would like the inside bag. So I just wanted to give you an idea as to how much filter area there really is. And I might just, I know I've showed you the filter, I might, when I put this post up, actually just get a ruler and roughly measure this so that you can get an idea of how wide, how long, and how deep it is. But, you know, I mean, it's got to pass a lot of air through a filter this size in a very short space of time, and this filter does get progressively dirty as the unit operates. So there's no conceivable way I can understand how anyone could argue that the machine doesn't lose performance as it works. That just doesn't hold water. But, you know, by comparison, if we have a look at a vacuum cleaner bag for one of our machines here. No, you don't need to take it out. I want a new one. No, don't worry about it. I'll go out here. We've got a bag here from a job that we've just done. And I'm about to turf it. It's actually full. This is what a vacuum cleaner bag for the machine. I don't know if we can see this here. Let's see if we can. There we go. This is a vacuum cleaner bag for the Kirby vacuum cleaner that we use day to day. And you can see it is the filter, it is the media that holds the dirt and allows the air pass through. It's much larger. It's got a huge area to diffuse air over. And I think, to be honest, that's why it subjectively works so much better. It's just got inches to burn. And as the ladies say, size does matter. And I've got kilos of dirt in here. I really can't impress upon the readership just how much dirt there is. I'm going to drop it just so that you get an idea. It's heavy. So that's my review of the Shark Navigator.